Have any of you guys gone to an ACE session? Answer me. Has anybody gone to an ACE session? Yes or no? No. Why are these people taking up our classrooms? Why are you not being sent to the tutoring center? What are ACE sessions? Why are they kicking me out of this room every day so I can't get any work done and then nobody's even going to them? Why do we not use the tutoring center that we already have? I see all these signs on this door next door that says anatomy and physiology. Come on in, talk to the ACE person. Can't they do that at the tutoring center? Do they not tutor for things like that? But like the girl that's in here for math, isn't that what the tutoring center is for?
Yep.
It's for math. So.
Especially since they divided the tutoring center now by computers and non-computer stuff.
Oh yeah.
And
so there should be room. Well, I'm just confused. Do what?
Once we hit a certain point of programming.
Oh yeah, you shouldn't. At that point, you know, I mean, past the 120 class, come on. They're kind of like rubber ducks at that point, right? You should just talk things out with them and try to figure it out. Yeah, you got your ducks though, you can use them. So, but the tutoring center is probably going to be to that point. And really, you guys realize a lot of times when you bring code, even to me to look at in the advanced class, it's to that point because you've spent hours deciding how you want it to work. And it can take a while for someone else to get caught up to speed with where you are on it. That's why the rubber duck is so important because you can explain to it what's going on. So let's look here. This week, what's due tomorrow night? Your presentation topic, I've seen a lot of people turn that in. I haven't had a chance to go look, but great. And then your family database selection. Now in this assignment, it actually tells you what page number to look at in the textbook to finish it. Please use that page number. Please don't feel like you're all lost. You need a tutor's help and you're not even referring to the information that was given to you, please. Not that you guys would ever do that. That's other classes, right? Got an email this morning from someone who said they didn't know that I had given them all this feedback in REPL. Do you know how frustrating that is? Hours and hours of wasted time. So I try to be here for students, but then sometimes it doesn't seem like it's worth the trouble. So I appreciate your feedback. I definitely need it if you haven't noticed.
Great question.
Yes, sir.
Where do we go to see what topics are already chosen so we actually don't choose?
You can't. You just have to guess.
So,
yep. Unless it'll let you look at responses on that form, which it should, but it probably doesn't. But you could sure try. When you look at your reservation form, if you click on fill out the form, I don't know if there's any way we can get it to force to open on Office.
so if we do run into that, we could get choices.
I'll let you know. And like I said before, chances are that you won't be doing exactly the same information. Most of our topics in C# are very big. That's why I could spend weeks and weeks on any given topic that we have. So I would assume that even if two people pick the same topic, they're going to be able to come up with different presentations unless it's a very small topic. So if you are overlapping, I'll suggest a minor change to make it to where it's not overlapping. So again, please refer to the textbook. It steps you through in like 2 or 3 pages exactly how to do this assignment, step by step. So that's the way that one shall be done. It's a really nice, simple way of approaching it. Not the way that we're doing it, because we are doing our 3-tier approach, which is much more complicated. It gives us a lot more control. Now for week 11, we do have some new information. LINK stands for, let me bring up this beautiful presentation I made for you guys that I'm forgetting about.
I feel like I know what LINK stands for, but I can't quite.
Can think about it. What do you think? Levi was trying to decide what link stood for. Would anybody like to help him? Any ideas there? Nope, nobody's got any ideas. Nobody's got a Google. Nobody knows how to do it. Look at her go.
I actually found it, but I
Levi could have Googled it too, couldn't he? She beat you. She still beat you after all of that.
I thought the inclusive were not clear. I knew that they had to deal with clear, but I didn't understand.
No, and we'll talk about it. Here's my cute PowerPoint, because we need a happy day today. So week 11, link and encryption is what we're doing this week. No class on Wednesday, your fun day with friends, or you're getting assignments done, whatever you want. Link, like you guys figured out, is language integrated query. It is SQL-like. So SQL worked so well that a few years ago, Microsoft thought, you know, we should make a query like that, a query tool that works for any kinds of file, any kind of data. So you can use link to create a select statement that gives you back information out of any sort of collection. So it could be an array, it could be a text file, it could be a database, but the query that you create is all standard. So you can use link to go against any of those kinds of file types. So it gives you a whole lot of capabilities. There are actual complete semester courses on link. So we'll just be looking at a little touch of it. And the way we're going to do that is some web-based link training. So I've found some really nice training online. And then at the end of the training, there's a short quiz that I'll ask you to do a screenshot or just tell me what your score is to turn in. So this one should be on your own. Get a little bit more information about link. The people that have used it a lot, that have really kind of delved into it more so than others, really like it. It really works well. Encryption. Encryption or serialization is a way for us to encode data. So we can use the serialization or the serializer class on C# and say, here, serializer, I have this chunk of data. I want you to encode it, and it will return back to us an encoded string. We can save that then in our database as a table, and when we do that, we've stored this data kind of in an encrypted or encoded manner. So the database administrator can't read that data. Anybody who does a query can't just see that data. They'd have to deserialize that information or uncode it, unencode it to get back to the data. So what we have for this week for serialization is there's a video out there of a coding stream from last year where we created a serialized app. We've spent our time differently this year, plus we lost that day last week, or this week, or whatever week it was. So you'll have to watch that video instead of us doing it together. So this video is kind of long. It's completely from beginning to end creating an application that writes out encoded data to a table. Now, because we don't have time for you guys to write that complete application this semester, your assignment is a little bit abbreviated. What you're going to do is create the table that's required, and it has to be created in a special way because it's going to hold this encrypted string of data. And then you're going to have a zip file project given to you that you're going to update to make it run. And all you're going to update in there is point it to your database in the connection string and make sure that your table definition meets the requirements so that it can actually execute. So kind of abbreviated, make sure you've seen it enough to understand what's going on there, but not force you to go through all this sweat and toil in creating the application. Now, another thing that's assigned this week is the employee full-time implementation. Put this off from last week because we needed to finish that update application, which we'll finish today. So I wanted to make sure we had enough background. We're going to be, you've already turned in your assignment to create the employee table. This time your full-time table will be a new table in the database, and it will be related to the employee table. There's a video out on Canvas, actually on YouTube, pointed to on Canvas, that shows you how to create that relationship. It's one of the very last ones in the series of last week, so you want to take a look at it. So you create the table, create the relationship in the database with your existing employee table. Then we'll add some test data to our full-time table. If you want to, you could save a script with all of that SQL code in it to create the table, load it with test data, whatever. That's optional, it's up to you. But then you're going to actually create your employee full-time app. This app, this first go round is display only. So it should just be your list box of data. Now you'll want to create this application using that 3-tier architecture like we've been doing in class, because in week 12, it is your Unit 3 hands-on exam to actually have update capability. So in week 12, we're going to fit a lot. We're going to do our Unit 3 exam. That'll be next Monday, a week from today, in class. There is a practice test out there. I've double-checked them both, but I will check them again and make sure everything looks good for them. So your hands-on exam is to finish the employee full-time application. So this is just like the one we're creating in class. The complication, the extra part is yours has 2 tables, the related tables, where the one we've been doing in class is just the 1 table. It doesn't make a huge amount of difference, but it does make a little bit of difference when you're working on things. So when you look at this assignment, there's some actual SQL code in the assignment to help you get past that hurdle, make sure that you can figure out how to do things with multiple tables and that join. Now to finish this one, you're going to be adding new methods to all your classes that you've already created, adding new controls to your forms to allow updating, changing your code, of course, and testing. So there shouldn't be as much to it as if you had to do it all at once. But do make sure you're looking that direction. You're not using that drag and drop. I'm going to throw this data grid on my form to get this assignment done thing, because then it'll be a real bunch of rework to try to get the updates in, unless you let Visual Studio handle all the updating. We'll get back to that. Wednesday will be your presentations. Now we're going to run a little low on time, but maybe not too bad. So we're going to try to fit as many of them in as we can on Wednesday. So everybody should be prepared next Wednesday to present. If we have any overflow, we'll take care of those first thing on Monday. And that's why we'll do our presentations on Wednesday. This is really a great day for me. I hate that we're going to only have one day, because I really like watching everybody's presentations, and it's really nice as a teacher to be able to see you guys present information, because usually everybody does such a good job that it's always a very nice thing to watch and see. Plus, I usually get to learn some new things, which I really like, because you guys always find things that I don't know anything about, which is great, right? You don't become a teacher because you know everything. You become a teacher because you like learning and you value learning and you want other people to learn. And I've got much chance to learn sometimes. Are they leaving? You guys all leaving? All going. So that's your week 12 presentations. So why have we been doing all of this hard work? You know, with our 3-layer application, we saw that we have our user and our business and our database, and somewhere somebody back in the 90s said, you know, if we kept all these separate, we could update hardware real easy in these different application layers, and that would be awesome. We're going to see in a couple of weeks there's another model that's just a little bit different, but this is our 3-tier that we've been trying to develop to. Is that I before E? I think that's right. I, E, I. So the way we've been implementing this 3-tier model, we are connectionless. So that means when we need data from the database, we open a connection, we query the database and get our data, and we close that connection, right? So we are controlling that connection, and we know that it's closed when our form is sitting there displaying data. We saw last time when somebody inserts a new row, again, we're going to open our database connection, insert that row, and close our database connection. No connection, connectionless. We're just sitting there with our form displayed without any locks or resources tied up in the database. If you use that data source in that data grid control, you guys can get together, and it's a really good thing if you would look at SQL Server Manager and look at the resources that are being used in SQL Server Manager and compare the resources that are being used in our connectionless app to one that uses that data source in a data grid. So if we use that data grid and we allow that full update control, in effect, we can have a connected app where all of those rows that are being displayed are holding read-only locks in the database. And if somebody else were to try to update them, they wouldn't be able to because they wouldn't get exclusive control over that row to be able to update it. So we want to try it in SQL Server Manager. Being aware of our resource consumption is always important. And you know, Microsoft can change the way they handle this at any minute, right? Because it should be connectionless. Last semester, when I thought it was connectionless, because I was like, surely Microsoft wouldn't leave these hundreds of locks out there just while we're looking at this data grid, and we found the resources in SQL Server Manager, and sure enough, was keeping hundreds of locks out in our database while we had that data grid control open. So if we do it ourselves and we're connectionless, we're controlling it completely. We know when there are locks on the database and when there are not. So that's why we've gone to so much trouble. Okay, so that's the next 2 weeks in a nutshell. Let's finish up our update application. See if we can get it to work all the way. I've got to open another one too because it's just too hard. Okay, so ours was the DB SQL member UBD 3-tier 102. Long enough name, I think. Now, after most everybody was gone last time, Dylan mentioned that we should be doing that. What are those things called? Interpolation. I'm not going to remember that. I'm going to remember it eventually. So we are going to try that with some. Don't let me forget. We'll do that with our update because it's super ugly, almost as bad as our insert. Okay, let's review what we have. First of all, we created our 3-tier app. We created our 3 folders that we care about: our business, our data access, and our user experience folders. And in our user experience, we have our form. In our business folder, we have our main class and our member.cs file. And in our data access, we have our data access. I want to look at our form and kind of review where we were. So last time we created everything, we decided that the way this app would work, and again, this is kind of the way you want your employee app to work unless you decide to go with the data grid. We have our list box, and if somebody clicks the plus sign, we make all of these text boxes available and let them type data in and click OK. And we inserted a row into our member table, and that happens. So now we'd like to do an update. So for our update, I'm thinking the way we want this to work is if somebody clicks on a row, we want to take that data from that row and populate our text box fields. Do we want to do that, or do we only want to populate the text boxes if they actually click on the tool to update?
I like the one where we just put the thing on the list.
Then how are we going to update? We can do that, but our icon might be kind of unnecessary.
Yeah, it might be much
Because I was thinking we would just do it that way, but it might be.
If they click on there, they get the option where they can have like, oh,
I guess we could leave them all protected, and they have to click that to unprotect them, to update them.
that way you can kind of see the numbers back.
See what they are.
That would get annoying.
Let's try it that way, and we'll see if that's super frustrating. I'm not sure. Could go either way. Okay, let's run it. Let's double check our load data. Remember how everything's working. We get our data up here. If we click plus, we were ready to type in some information. We click OK. We should see that new person in our list box. So it looks like it's working. Okay, is everybody's working all right? Yay. So we want to start out here creating some information when somebody clicks on a member in our list box. So let's double click on our list box to start with that logic.
Wait, so you're pretty much saying like if you are selecting something in this box and display that information,
Uh-huh.
we would probably have to make an array for the numbers. Wouldn't we?
Well,
what do you talk about?
the first thing we'd need to do is update our selected item field, because that's a class level field, and we want to know which item they clicked on. So let's worry about that first. So that would be our list box members selected index. That would be the selected item number that we'd want to keep track of. So then Levi was saying, what we got to get a member somehow. Well, whenever we created this list box item, wasn't it a member then? A member object? Yeah, so we said for this member object, add it to our list box. So we should be able to pull that member back out of our list box. So let's say our member equals, yeah, our list box members dot items, selected item. Now we might be able to get that a different way. Yeah, I think we have to cast it. So right now it's saying that syntax is good, but it can't convert this object to a member. So if we cast it, we should be okay.
What I was doing, like on my previous assignment, I was doing something similar. I said a member equals a member. Does that matter, or I mean, technically?
Because I was kind of wondering with this one why we don't need to do that it's a new member. But because we already have a member, we don't have to create a new instance of a member.
I don't know if you like, well, technically because of the member instance,
Mm-hmm.
So it should just pull from there now.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Should just pull out of that list box. Yes, sir.
Now, I always question is that we're using list, memory list or an array to, since they're both
Uh-huh. Right. And since this was a member when we put it in the list, we don't have to create a new instance of a member because we already have one. Now, whenever we get this new member, we want to put the stuff into a text box for them. Let's create a method for that. Let's create a method called load text because we have so many pieces here. I bet we'll need it again. So I'm going to make that a private method, load text.
You wanna like pass in a bunch of emails?
Well, do you guys want to? We don't need to because our member object is a global class field, but we could because we do need it. So right now, if we left things like this, we would be loading up those text boxes, but we're going to leave them still protected. And that's what we're saying we want to do. We want them to have to click the update button to unprotect those.
Yep, that always works.
Does it work? All right, let's try it.
Interesting.
Okay, so right now we can see that. I do like that we can see all of that person's information, but we can't change it. So that seems okay. Yeah, I like it.
If we want to, we could go to enable and disable. We can call it that method after.
Right, but we don't want to. So we're going to go back to our form and double click on our update icon. And when somebody clicks our update icon, then we're going to enable, disable, and set everything to enabled. Now, a question, do we want them to be able to change the ID?
Probably not. That's probably gonna be long. So
Yeah, so we're going to leave it not enabled. We'll override our method there because we don't want to change that. Then we want, is it first name that will be first that we want to be focused? See if we can make use of all of our methods that we wrote and make short order of this thing. So that looks good. We're saying we want to open up all those fields. We want to not open the ID and put our cursor in the name field. So let's try it. So for Joe here, I'll click update. And sure enough, that looks good. I'm ready to go, ready to just click OK. So let's finish our OK button. We already have it. Do I?
There's one other thing that can be mildly annoying. When you click update and then you like switch to a different name, if you keep those fields enabled, you might want to re-disable those. That's just kind of a minor, possibly.
So let's see if they click. So we'd want our selected index changed here.
basically you just want to run your disable defaults again.
Yeah, okay.
So they have to update every time.
Does that look right? Just do that.
Yeah.
And then we'll get our item out of that list. Try it again, make sure that works good. And then we can update and be on that person. Looks good. It reverts back out of that. All right. I think we're ready to do our OK button then. So right now the code that we have is just our if statement. If our selected item is -1, and that was for our add. So we can add an else clause because for our update, our selected item should not be -1. It should be whatever row number they clicked on. So for the update, we need to grab I'm trying to think here. What do we want to do? Think. First thing is we've got to take the text boxes that they've updated and use that member object that we've already created to update those fields. So if they change the first name, I want to change it in our member object. If they update the last name, I want to change it in our member object. And if they update the phone number,
It's not too happy about us doing it.
why is that?
Read only.
It is with read only right now.
What's that mean?
We only have this good.
Oh,
We're only reading from it right now.
So what do we need to add to what?
We have to change the properties that to get the stuff, not just that.
For what?
for just not ID, but the rest. We have to-
For our member class?
Yeah.
Exactly right.
We try to explain it.
We knew this was coming.
Exactly. So I'm going to try to add it. So I'm going to do, I guess I'll put it after my get set lambda first name equal value semicolon. And I want to add that set lambda expression to each of my properties.
It's weird how it's formatting it that way.
Yeah, it's formatting it really weird. It kind of does whatever it feels like.
I'm not gonna do that.
I guess we could put, like that would be better because it's really weird how it's being. I was just trying to be short and have it on one line before.
I mean, what's better when it's on one line, but no, it used to be nice to say that.
That's too long. So now we have a setter. That should have gotten rid of that error.
Do we have an instructor that can do that?
Do I?
We need an instructor that can handle those queries.
No, I mean, we're changing it, we're assigning new values to each property. We don't need construction.
Pretty sure.
Got it? All right. So now we've got our member class updated. One of those kinds of things that it could at work take 3 weeks. We got it. Okay, so now we're good. We're reading in that data from our user and updating our member. So whenever we ran this for our insert, we said for this member, we want to do a create member of a member. Again, we might not need to pass that in there, huh? So for our update, let's try not passing it in because it's already the current member. So we're going to say a member. We want to update member, and this method doesn't exist yet, so it's going to give us an error. We'll get that added. We're going to update our text property to say member updated. And then we're going to run our load items method to reload our list box with that updated data. After we load those items with our updated data, we should disable all our text boxes because we're back to not having anything over there. And we should clear them. We'll use our clear text method that we created.
I'm so used to having to put in the parentheses manually, so I'm always getting like 2
Extra pairs. Yeah, like 7. Okay, so whenever we updated last time, we saw that it was a lot easier if we added the new method to our data access class, this bottom tier, and then we updated. Well, we've already kind of blown that because we've added in this call here in our user experience. But let's do that same thing. Let's go to our data access class and add in that update code. So in our data access class, if we review what happens on an insert, for an insert, we create our SQL statement. It says insert into our member table, all of these columns, then all of these values to match up with those columns. In our code then, we said to open the database, set up a new instance of an SQL command with this command we've just built, and then execute that command. We need to close the database after that. We were closing class. We did not close the database properly. So for our update, we could do pretty much the same thing. We're just going to make our SQL statement be our update statement. We're not going to pass in any sort of parameter here to our update member because we know the current member is what we're going to update. So let's start with our SQL syntax. I'm going to search. And of course, W3 Schools is going to be super helpful to me to tell me what the update command syntax is. And it says we're supposed to say update the table name, set column name equal to value, comma, column name equal to value, comma, column name equal to value. We're going to list all our columns. And then finally at the end, we're going to have a where condition. So for us, we're going to want to update our member table. We're going to want to set the first name column equal to the first name that was passed to us, last name, phone number. And our where condition is going to be where our student ID matches the ID. Yup. So we should be able to code that.
I can only imagine how bad these tables can get, the bigger they are.
Really big. Okay, so I want you to have a comparison. So I want to do the ugly first. Just so Dylan's like, why? Because I want you to truly get how awesome the interpolated stuff is. So let's say old school. Update, member table, space. Set first name space equals space, and then we want to single quote, and then close our double quote. And then we're going to add yeah, we're going to have to pass it though, because right now I was trying to not pass in a member, but that's silly. We're going to pass one, and we'll call it UPD member. So I want UPD member's first name. Plus, after that, I want to close the single quote, put a comma to start the next one, and a space. And I'm going to continue on. We only need that set keyword once. So the next row is going to continue on without it. And our phone number. Single quote. Now I want to add our update member's phone number plus a closing double quote and a space, but no comma on that one because that's our last one. And then we want to add our where clause. Where student ID equals tick mark plus our ID. Plus, finally, then we need to close our final tick mark, single quote, close our SQL statement with a semicolon, and close our C# statement with a semicolon. The interpolated just looks so much better.
Yeah, this is.
So I want to go ahead and put it in just so you can, like I said, really see the difference. So the first line doesn't really matter that much, right? I mean, we're pretty straightforward on that first line. It's not like this giant puddle of mud thing. All right, so now our second line, set first name equal to tick mark within curly braces UPD member dot first name. Then we can close our tick mark and put our comma in a space. So our second line is going to look just the same, except we're doing the last name. Finally, our phone number. Single quote, curly brace, UPD member dot phone number. Close, single quote, space, but no comma. And finally, the last line would be our where clause. With our closing. So what do you think?
The interpolation is far less terrifying than like these days. With all the quotes.
You have to have that
Big Bear, you don't need the plus sign, but the plus sign just so you can break to the next
I
line.
know, I'm just saying, do you need to, use this tab or you're just doing that for formatting?
What?
Do you need the tabs or you're just doing it for formatting?
The tabs.
Like the spaces for last name and first
Yeah.
No, I'm just doing it for formatting.
It's a lot easier to read,
Isn't it?
a lot less likely to make mistakes.
That's what I think is it's just a lot easier to handle, especially with the single quotes surrounding our data. Because we could actually type that code without those single quotes and everything would be fine. But then if we ever ran into a piece of data that had a space in it, it would all blow up and not work anymore because we didn't have the single quotes. I think it's a lot easier to look at. I just can't remember that word, interpolated. Have to remember that for me. So let's comment out the old one. Good. I would like to leave it in my code because I want to forever remember. That interpolated is better. Maybe if I put a comment in here. You know, I have to write something before I remember it. So maybe that'll help me remember. So many different ways we can do things. And as you watch, as you look at this code, you'll see stuff. I was given this code and I changed it tremendously. And I'm sure you'll do the same thing. Because now it's really bothering me. Why are we creating this command object? Why don't we just call our exec command? Why doesn't it just do all those things, you know? So lots of ways we could change stuff. Since it doesn't do all those things at this point, I'll continue on in that same vein. We'll do our open. We'll create our SQL command object. And in our SQL command object, we're going to tell the interpreter, use SQL as a string field to contain your command and use dbcon as your connection. Oh, it's mad at me.
Yeah.
We want that to be update CMD.
I got you. I was about to say
Or what did we make it? CMD insert. Oh, I'm going backwards. Let me fix it. CMD update. Backwards one way, backwards the other way. Then we're going to run our exec command using our new command that we've just created. And then we're going to close the database. One other thing that we might want to change too to make the application better would be right now for our error logging, we are writing things out to the error output and we're throwing an exception so that we cancel the program. But maybe we could use some sort of return string instead of having a void return. We could return a string that was the status, like member updated, and then we could display that in our label. Right now, we're just canceling the whole thing if something goes awry. So lots of ways that we could improve. That's the great cool thing about programming, is that there's never like a perfect solution. Should we try it? Do you think it's done? No, it's not done. We need to call this thing from our member class. So in our member class, go down to the bottom where we're calling our create member, and now we can call our update member. And this does have the same syntax, same name as the one in our data access class, because with CRUD, update is update in both places. Data access dot update member, the member. And then in our form, we should have gotten rid of that error. Oh, we need to pass in our member. Yeah, that gets rid of the error. So we already had this member object created. We allocated it based on what line number they'd clicked on. When they clicked on a line in our list box, they've updated some text fields, so we're going to update the class object, use the class object to call our SQL update to update the database, reload our items in our list box, disable all of our text boxes and clear them out. Let's see if it works. So I should be able to load my data. I'll click on this weird user here that I created. Now I'm going to click on update. And see if I can get this thing updated properly. Oh, there he is. Showed up updated. Everything good there. And I like that clicking. I like the way it works. I do. I think it works good. Now, how would you make your delete work?
Well, whenever you like select it right there, you just want to pass the ID because in this failure is going to leave by the ID.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to do it that way.
And then like from a form perspective, and UX perspective, the message box would be good, so you don't just destroy it.
Mm-hmm.
Whenever you delete that, you're going to want to reload the list, so the data.
After it's gone. Perfect. And I think you guys have all the information how to do it. That sounds really good. Yeah, you could pop up with a message box asking them if they really want to delete it.
Yeah, like confirmation. If they click yes, then
Great. Any other questions? Does it seem to be working okay?
I just need to go back to the data access real fast because
Sure.
I was getting slow in the interpolation part.
No problem.
And then
I did it this morning and I was copying so I could go faster.
I definitely want to start using this over the other way.
Yeah, this is one of those things that's hard with C#1 because if you don't teach them the old way, they'll never know it. But do they need to know it? In the setup module on Canvas, there is a link to the Zoom session playlist. Sometimes these videos are getting out there more slowly than the morning class because it takes a while for those Zoom videos to convert. So I could get the morning class done before the day's over, but you guys is not so much. So feel free to watch the morning class session. We're doing pretty much the same thing, just a little bit in a little bit different, not much. And then the other thing that's out here is the REPL course invites, all those different links. So if there's any of those C#1 REPLs that you wanted to revisit, you can. They're out there. Just wanted to make sure you knew those were out there. I spent some time this weekend trying to make sure those were available to all the classes. That's it for us for today. The rest of the time is work time for you guys. Wednesday, work time, play time, whatever you choose. And I will see you next Monday for our unit exam. So don't forget, yes, it will be that Monday. If you see any of our absent people, remind them. Oh, and Wednesday, you guys, I will be out there at that Expo Center. So if you send crying emails, it won't matter. I probably won't see them until that night, and I probably won't get to them until Thursday. So try to communicate on Slack, help each other.
Can you go back before you cancel the session? Can you go back?
Sure.
I'm like looking at that more than I look up there. Okay.
Oh, you want to see it before I end it? I'm sorry. Is that what you said?
Yeah, if that's it over here, just easier to look at it real fast.
How's that? I think I finally got it again.
Is that a quick access thing? Or, yeah, that layer, it's a new class. Yeah. Data access class. Well, no, it's a static, most of the static stuff here, not everything else.
Between last time and this one, I got most of the content.
Good.
But any chance you can paste the so I can just double check a few things because I think
No, there's videos.
there's videos.
Yeah,
Okay, I
there's
can go back
videos.
to that.
So let me get that last one out there. But yeah, you should be able to find everything in the
Okay.
videos. So
You
when
said
last
it's in
time,
that the Zoom session videos.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
yeah,
All right, sweet action.
should be the newest one if it's sorting right. But yeah, see if you can find it in there, and then that way you can rewind
I
and
can sit down
navigate
tonight
through
after
to see.
dinner and work on
Yeah.
it. I was sitting there trying to work through everything the other day. I was like, I think I got it, but wait.
There's so many pieces,
Yeah.
and it's super hard. And I mean, even through the summer, I feel really lucky to have the videos because those are from doing those 5 weeks classes, you know, and if I hadn't had some of those videos, literally took me the whole day to make a video, you know, because I would have to stop and figure out and be like, oh my gosh, where are my pieces gone, and try to get back. I mean, my husband would leave in the morning and he would come back after work and I would be still working on the same stupid video. And I don't ever want to change them, and I have to.
I know how that feels. My wife, like last night, she got on. She's like, "Oh, is your homework going to take?" And I reformatted my computer over the weekend and set it back up. I forgot to set the system time. So the clock on it was saying it was like 10:40 when it was actually like 1:40 in the morning. And I'm like, "It ain't that late. Why are you complaining?" And she's like, "It is late as hell, honey. You got class tomorrow. What are we gonna do?" And I've been waiting on you. And I'm like, "Oh crap! Well, as soon as I get this done, I'll be in there in bed." So we'll get ready for bed. So yeah, I got to bed about 2:15 last night. Finishing up an assignment for web dev. Most of my time to work on homework is after I get my daughter to bed.
That's late, yes. Oh, I bet she was just ready to just kill you.
Yeah. But I thought it was like 10:40. I was doing good. I'm a night owl, so I can do the late stuff, but getting up at 4 kills me.
So, making the relationship like connecting with people,
No, and it should be in the assignment. Should have the instructions. Did you get it, Greg? Greg, can I end it?
Yeah, you weren't broadcasted anyway, so I don't know. Can you go to your on your program? You don't need a broadcast now.
Oh,
I'm missing one thing, and I'm just trying to figure out what I'm missing because I know I'm missing it.
what do you mean?
I'm either missing some of my members or I'm missing some of my actual button press. So I got that part now.